I am sitting on the courthouse steps right now, my hands still shaking, holding a thick folder of documents. My mother used to be the woman who sacrificed everything for me. When I was a kid, we had nothing but each other, and I thought that bond was unbreakable. I promised myself I would repay her someday. Then I built my first house with my own two hands, and she took me to court to steal it from me. She thought she would win. She had no idea what I had been saving for 2 years. If you have ever trusted someone completely and then been betrayed by them, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends. Because what happened in that courtroom changed everything I believed about family. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and nothing much ever changes. My father left when I was 4 years old. He walked out the door one morning and never came back. No phone calls, no birthday cards, no explanation. Just gone. So it was always just me and my mother, Gloria. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. During the day, she worked at a dry cleaning shop downtown, pressing shirts and folding laundry until her back ached. At night, she worked as a cashier at a convenience store on the edge of town. She would come home smelling like detergent and cigarette smoke, her feet swollen, her eyes tired. But she always smiled at me and asked about my day. We lived in a tiny apartment with thin walls and a heater that never worked right in winter. My mom and I shared a bedroom until I was 12 years old because we could not afford anything bigger. I remember lying in bed at night listening to her cry quietly when she thought I was asleep. She was struggling, but she never let me see her give up. She used to tell me all the time, "Dane, it is just you and me against the world. You are everything to me." And I believed her. I believed every word. I made a promise to myself that when I grew up, I would give her a better life. I would make her proud. I was not a great student, and college was never really an option for us financially. So after high school, I learned a trade. I became a carpenter, and I was good at it. I worked hard, took extra shifts, learned everything I could about construction, electrical work, plumbing. By the time I was 28 years old, I had saved up enough money to buy a small piece of land on the outskirts of Columbus. It cost me $72,000 every penny I had earned over 10 years of hard work. I decided to build my own house. Not hire someone to do it, but actually build it myself with my own hands. I spent almost 2 years working on it during evenings and weekends. My friends from the construction trade helped me when they could. It was exhausting, but every nail I hammered, every board I cut felt like a step toward the life I had always dreamed of. During the construction, I hit a rough patch financially. I needed about $5,000 to finish the roof, and I was short. My mom offered to help. She gave me $5,000 and told me it was a loan that I could pay her back whenever I was able. I was so grateful. I hugged her and told her I would pay back every cent. The day I finally moved into that house was one of the happiest days of my life. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a big backyard with room for a garden. It was not fancy, but it was mine. I built it with my own 2 hands. I invited my mom over for dinner that first night. She walked through the front door and started crying. She hugged me and said, "Dane, I am so proud of you. I cannot believe my son built this." I gave her a spare key and told her my home would always be her home too. I meant it with all my heart. A few months later, I noticed some changes in my mom. She started showing up at my house unannounced sometimes when I was at work. I would come home and find her there with people I did not know. She would introduce them as her friends and say they just wanted to see the beautiful house her son built. At first, I did not think much of it, but then I overheard something that made me uncomfortable. I came home early one day and heard my mom on the phone with my Aunt Ruth, her younger sister. She was saying, "This house belongs to both of us. I put money into it. Without me, Dane would have nothing." I stood in the hallway frozen. That was not true. I built this house. I paid for almost everything. Her $5,000 helped, yes, but it was a loan, and I was planning to pay it back. I decided to talk to her about it gently. I said, "Mom, I heard what you said on the phone. I appreciate everything you have done for me, but I need you to understand that I built this house with my own money and my own labor. The $5,000 you gave me was a loan, and I am going to pay you back." Her face changed in an instant. Her eyes went cold, and her voice turned sharp. "What are you saying, Dane? Are you forgetting who raised you? Who sacrificed everything so you could have a life?" I was stunned. This was not the mother I knew. I apologized, tried to calm things down, but something between us had shifted and I could feel it. A week later, I transferred $5,000 back to her bank account. I wrote in the memo line, "Repayment for loan toward house construction." She accepted the money without saying thank you. She did not even acknowledge receiving it. And in that moment, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Something was very wrong. 6 months after I paid back the loan, my mom called me in tears. She said her landlord was not renewing her lease and she had nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay with me for a few weeks while she found a new place. I did not hesitate. I told her of course she could stay. She was my mother. She showed up with 4 suitcases and 3 boxes of belongings. I set her up in the living room with a comfortable pull-out couch and told her to make herself at home. The first week was fine. She cooked dinner, kept the house clean, and seemed genuinely grateful. The second week, things started to change. I came home from work and found that she had rearranged my furniture without asking. She had moved my television to a different wall, changed the pictures in the hallway, and put her own decorations on my shelves. When I asked her about it, she said she was just trying to make the place feel more like home. By the third week, she introduced me to her new boyfriend, Ray. He was a thin man with a patchy beard and restless eyes, maybe 10 years younger than her. She invited him over for dinner, which was fine. But then he stayed the night, and the next night, and the night after that. By the 4th week, Ray had a toothbrush in my bathroom, his clothes in my closet, and his boots by my front door. He would sit on my couch watching my television, drinking my beer, acting like he owned the place. And my mother acted like this was completely normal. I finally worked up the courage to talk to her privately. I said, "Mom, I love you, but I need my space back. You were supposed to stay for a few weeks. It has been a month, and I am not comfortable with Ray living here. This is my house." She exploded. Her face turned red and she started screaming at me. "This is my house too. I put money into this house. You cannot kick me out. I am your mother." I tried to explain that I had already paid her back, that the house was legally mine, that I had every right to ask her to leave. But she would not listen. She kept screaming about how she sacrificed her whole life for me, how I was ungrateful, how I was trying to throw her out on the street. Ray came into the room and stood next to her with his arms crossed. He looked at me like I was the problem and said, "You should show your mother some respect, man. She has every right to be here." I told Ray to get out of my house. He laughed at me, but he left. My mother stayed crying and telling me I was breaking her heart. That night she called everyone in our family. She called Aunt Ruth. She called Uncle Frank, her older brother. She even called my grandmother, who was 82 years old and living in a nursing home 3 hours away. She told them all the same story, that I was trying to throw my own mother out on the street after she gave me everything. The phone calls started coming the next day. Aunt Ruth called me first. She did not even say hello. She just started yelling. "How dare you treat your mother like this? She gave up her whole life for you. You are disgusting." Uncle Frank sent me a text message that said, "I am ashamed to have a nephew like you." My grandmother called me crying. Her voice was shaky and weak, and she said, "Dane, how could you do this to your mother? You are breaking my heart." I tried to explain my side of the story, but nobody wanted to hear it. My mother had already told them her version, and they believed her. She told them that she was the one who paid for the house, that I had just put my name on the paperwork that I was stealing from her. It was a complete lie. But they believed her because she was the mother, and mothers do not lie about their children. Right? I realized I had no choice. I could not live like this with my mother and her boyfriend occupying my home with my entire family turned against me. I hired a lawyer and sent my mother a formal notice to vacate the property within 30 days. She received the notice and did not say a word to me. She just looked at me with cold eyes and went back to watching television with Ray. I thought maybe she had finally accepted that she needed to leave. 3 days later, I received a summons. My mother was suing me. She was claiming that she had contributed the majority of the funds to build the house and that she was entitled to 50% of its value. The lawsuit included what she called evidence receipts and bank statements that supposedly proved her case. I sat at my kitchen table and read through the documents with shaking hands. The receipts were from hardware stores and building supply companies. The amounts matched purchases I had made with my own money. But somehow she had copies of them and was claiming they were hers. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room staring at the walls I had built with my own hands. My mother was not just lying to our family anymore. She was lying to a court of law. She was trying to steal my home. But as the sun came up the next morning, I made a decision. I was not going to let her win. I was going to fight back, and I was going to win. I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find, every bank statement, every receipt, every email, every text message from the past 4 years. And then I remembered something. A few months ago, I had accidentally left my phone recording in the living room. I had picked it up later and never listened to the recording, but now I went back and found it. What I heard on that recording changed everything. I spent the next several weeks preparing for the court battle. I pulled bank statements from the past 4 years, every single one. I got official copies from my bank stamped and certified, showing every transaction I had ever made related to the house. The land purchase, the building materials, the contractor fees, the permit costs, the insurance, the property taxes. Every single payment came from my account. My name was the only name on every document. I found the record of my mother's $5,000 contribution. It showed up as a deposit into my account with a memo that said, "Loan from Mom." 6 months later, my repayment showed up as a transfer to her account with the memo, "Repayment for loan toward house construction." The money had gone in and the money had gone out. That was the full extent of her financial involvement in my house. I also found something else. Text messages from my mother that she had sent me 3 years earlier when I first finished the house. One message said, "Dane, I am so proud of you for building your own house with your own money. You did not need anyone's help. You are a real man." Another said, "I tell all my friends that my son built a house from scratch all by himself." But the most important piece of evidence was that recording. I had left my phone on the coffee table one afternoon, and it had accidentally started recording. On the recording, I could hear my mother and Ray talking in my living room. They did not know they were being recorded. My mother's voice was clear. She said, "I never paid a single penny for that house. But the courts always believe mothers. All I have to do is cry and say my son is abandoning me. I will get at least half the value and then we can sell it and split the money." Ray laughed and said, "You are a genius, Gloria." When I heard that recording, my blood ran cold. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not my mother being confused or emotional. This was a deliberate, calculated plan to steal my house. She knew she had no claim. She knew she was lying. And she thought she was going to get away with it. I hired the best real estate litigation attorney I could find. His name was Marcus Webb, a sharp man in his 50s with gray hair and calm eyes. I showed him all my evidence, including the recording. When he finished reviewing everything, he looked at me and smiled. "Dane," he said, "your mother has no idea what she is walking into. She thinks she has the upper hand, but you have everything you need to destroy her case completely." I nodded. I was ready. The day of the trial arrived on a cold Tuesday morning in November. I put on my best suit and drove to the courthouse with my folder of evidence. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. I had spent months preparing for this moment. My mother arrived with her lawyer, a middle-aged man named Harold Price. She was dressed in a simple gray dress, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked like a sweet, innocent old woman who had been wronged by her ungrateful son. It was a performance, and I could see right through it. Her lawyer presented her case first. He talked about how my mother had sacrificed her entire life for me, how she had worked 2 jobs to raise me alone, how she had given me the money I needed to build my house. He presented the receipts she had provided, claiming they proved her financial contributions. He made her sound like a saint. Then my mother took the witness stand. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue and spoke in a trembling voice. "I gave everything I had to my son," she said. "I worked my fingers to the bone so he could have a better life. I gave him the money to build that house, and now he wants to throw me out on the street like I am garbage." I watched the judge's face. She was an older woman named Patricia Holloway, probably in her 60s. She listened to my mother's testimony with what looked like sympathy. A few members of the jury were nodding along. I saw Aunt Ruth sitting in the back of the courtroom, her arms crossed, glaring at me. For a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. What if they believed her? What if her tears were more convincing than my evidence? Then it was our turn. Marcus stood up slowly, buttoning his jacket. His voice was calm and measured as he began to dismantle everything my mother's lawyer had built. First, he presented my bank statements. Official documents from my bank, certified and stamped, showing every payment I had ever made for the house. The land, the materials, the labor, the permits, the taxes. Every single dollar came from my account. Then he presented the record of my mother's $5,000 loan and my repayment 6 months later. This, Marcus said, is the complete extent of Gloria's financial contribution to this house, a temporary loan that was fully repaid. Next, he called a handwriting expert to the stand. The expert testified that the receipts my mother had submitted showed signs of digital manipulation. They had been altered to make it appear that she had made purchases she never actually made. The courtroom was silent. My mother's face had gone pale. Her lawyer was shuffling through his papers looking for something that was not there. Then Marcus said, "Your Honor, I would like to submit one final piece of evidence, an audio recording that my client discovered on his phone." He pressed play. My mother's voice filled the courtroom. "I never paid a single penny for that house, but the courts always believe mothers. All I have to do is cry and say my son is abandoning me. I will get at least half the value and then we can sell it and split the money." The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I looked at my mother. Her face was white as paper. Her mouth was open, but no words came out. Her lawyer slumped back in his chair, defeated. Judge Holloway looked at my mother for a long moment. Then she delivered her verdict. The case was dismissed. I was the sole legal owner of my house. My mother was ordered to pay all court costs for both parties, and the court was referring the matter to law enforcement for investigation into perjury and evidence tampering. As the judge spoke, my mother tried to stand up. Ray grabbed her arm and pulled her back. She started screaming at me across the courtroom. "You will regret this. I raised you without me. You are nothing." I did not respond. I picked up my folder, turned around, and walked out of the courtroom. I did not look back. Outside, I saw Aunt Ruth standing near the exit. She would not meet my eyes. She had heard the recording. She knew the truth now. But she did not say a word to me. She just walked away. I drove home alone. I had won, but I did not feel like celebrating. That night I sat in my living room in the dark. The house was silent. I had finally gotten what I wanted. The court had confirmed what I always knew, that this house was mine. But I felt empty. I cried that night for the first time since I was a child. I did not cry because of the house or the lawsuit or the money. I cried because I had lost my mother. Not to death, but to something worse. I had lost the mother I thought I had. The woman who sacrificed everything for me, who told me I was her whole world, who made me believe in unconditional love. That woman never really existed. Or maybe she did once and then she changed. I will never know for sure. For weeks after the trial, I could not sleep. I kept replaying memories from my childhood, trying to figure out what was real and what was a lie. Did she really love me? Or was I always just an investment to her? When she told me I was everything to her, was that true? Or was she already planning how she would collect on that debt someday? I did not have answers. I still do not. What saved me was the people who showed up for me. My friend Tommy, who I had known since trade school, started coming by every weekend. He never tried to give me advice or tell me what to do. He just sat with me on the porch, drank beer, and listened when I needed to talk. Sometimes we did not talk at all. We just sat in silence, and that was enough. My co-worker Kevin invited me to join a volunteer project he was working on, building homes for veterans who had fallen on hard times. At first I did not want to go. I was too tired, too sad. But Kevin kept asking, and eventually I said yes. There was something healing about using my hands to build something for someone who really needed it. It reminded me why I loved this work in the first place. 3 months after the trial, I started seeing a therapist. I had never believed in that kind of thing before, but I was struggling and I needed help. The therapist helped me understand that my mother likely had issues that went far beyond what I could see or fix. She helped me accept that I could not have prevented what happened, and I was not responsible for my mother's choices. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my grandmother. Her handwriting was shaky, and the letter was short. She wrote, "Dane, I listened to the recording from the trial. I am so sorry I doubted you. I should have known better. You have always been a good boy. I love you, and I am proud of you." I drove 4 hours to the nursing home that weekend. When I walked into her room, she started crying. I hugged her and told her I forgave her. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. When I left, I felt lighter than I had in months. My mother was eventually charged with perjury for lying under oath. She received 2 years of probation and community service. Ray disappeared right after the trial. I heard from Aunt Ruth that he moved to another state. My mother was left alone exactly as she had always feared. A year after the trial, my mother sent me a letter. She did not apologize. She did not admit she was wrong. She just wrote, "I am still your mother." I read the letter once, then put it in a drawer. I did not write back. I do not hate my mother. I have worked hard to let go of that anger because holding on to it only hurts me. But I also do not have a place for her in my life anymore. Forgiving someone does not mean you have to let them back in. Sometimes loving yourself means keeping certain people at a distance. Aunt Ruth called me about 6 months after the trial to apologize. I accepted her apology, but our relationship has never been the same. Uncle Frank never reached out. I have made peace with that. Today I still live in the house I built with my own hands. I planted a garden in the backyard last spring. I have good friends who come over for barbecues in the summer. I am building a good life one day at a time. The biggest lesson I learned from all of this is that blood does not guarantee loyalty. Being family does not give someone the right to take from you or hurt you. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. If you are in a relationship where you constantly have to prove your worth, where you feel like you owe someone for loving you, I want you to think about something. Are you trying to earn love, or are you trying to avoid being abandoned? Those are two very different things. I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had to stand up against someone you love to protect yourself? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more stories like this one. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you something valuable. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and remember that you deserve people in your life who love you without conditions. Until next time.